My name is
Yeah,
Pavel Clementiev. I'm from Russia originally. This is Chandler Cordial. I don't know how to pronounce your last name correctly.
coddle or coddle, whatever
Yeah,
works.
Cuddle, Cuddle. So you know who
There you
to
go.
reach out to if you feel lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Right, right.
what we've decided to do here is we decided to interview each other because Chandler is really into heavy lifting. I'm sorry, heavyweight lifting, and he has been doing it for quite some years. We met in college actually. We were in the same fraternity, so he's my big and I'm his small. Up until
Oh
now,
yeah.
that is. When it comes to me, I've been practicing yoga for over 7 years, and we both interested to see whether there are any commonalities in between those two endeavors, or what are the differences, and what other person believes success is, and what are the ways how we can perform the best and still living our lives without any troubles. So Chandler, can you introduce yourself just a little bit and tell me what is the heavy lifting thing? Why did you get in there at the first place, and what is that you love about it so much?
Yeah, for sure. I grew up in northern slash eastern Kentucky. It was really weird because like eastern Kentucky is very poor, and like when I lived in northern Kentucky, we would go to like mission trips in my hometowns, and it was like real weird for me. So that was really cool. Grew up there, and then went to NKU for my undergrad, and at UF for two of my masters, a graduate certificate, and potentially my PhD. And in college, actually 2018, March 15th, 2018. So we are coming up on 6 years now. I founded strengthbybarbell.com, where I was able to kind of exude some of my passion through that. And then through that, I was able to actually find, strongman and kind of go from there. My journey kind of started whenever I was feeling down on myself, lost a bunch of weight, and then oddly enough, some random dude on Facebook was just like, "Hey man, like, come pick up a car," and I was like, "Hell yeah, like I haven't done anything like that in
Hmm.
forever." So it was really an opportunity for me to get out of my comfort zone. I'd lost about 120 pound, or 60 kilo, 50 kilo, whatever that is. And then just really was able to see some of the events, and it's not necessarily like a strength thing in strongman, right? You don't necessarily have to have the strength to do it, but you have to have the technique to do it,
Hmm.
which was great for someone who's laughed out of gym class for not even being able to do a push up to go and lift a
Mm.
car like that. It just basically got me addicted from the very first day. So that's kind of
It
how that got
reminds me
started.
how I participated at one of the competitions once with you, and I tried to pull and push different things that were extremely heavy for me.
Yeah, I think there was actually a car deadlift in that show too.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll just go back and forth. Give yourself a
Yes.
little intro, give us a rundown, and let's hear it.
Before I say something, I'm still curious. What is the what is the weight that you started with that you could pick up, and now what is the weight that you can pick up now?
I think the first time I ever benched, it was I don't really track my bench now, but it was, probably 95 pounds, I think was what
Hmm.
that was. My first log clean and press was 43 pounds,
Hmm.
which is half what I've been now. My overhead is 350 now, and then my deadlift started. My first ever deadlift was 365. Was basically me walking into the gym and someone telling me to pick up a bar and me just
Yeah.
shitting around with it. And I've pulled 745 since then. So
Damn.
yeah, 10 years later, anay
But
to
still, yeah,
compare.
it's impressive. Well, when it comes to me, when I started doing yoga, I did not lose weight. For me, what was important is that I spent many years in a lot of thinking and a lot of emotional upheavals. So I've experienced depression for many years, and yoga was the first practice that stopped my restless mind. And for this first time, I discovered some space between the thoughts where I could just sit and be okay, and without needing to run somewhere or without needing to fix anything or change anything or accomplish anything. It was just pure sittingness without any effort, and that was a tremendous change for me. And also, I do believe that the reason that yoga caught so much of my attention is that I finally stopped criticizing myself because yoga is a self-healing tool, for the most part, self-caring tool, and it helped me to learn how to appreciate myself for who I am already and how to love myself and give myself gifts or hugs sometimes even.
Yeah.
What is interesting to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that I believe that when you w- lift the heavy weight, your mind stops as well because you're so particularly focused on your practice and uh, such a heavy endeavor in some ways, then you might experience the feeling of gratitude and spaciousness when you're done with what you practice.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at least in my experience, it's not necessarily for everyone. I've noticed a lot of like connection between, once you start getting into flow states,
Mm.
between my own yoga practice. I've been practicing mostly yin yoga
Nice. It's
for
very
two
cool. Yeah.
two years. Yeah. So like whenever you drop into yourself, like through a yin pose, 2 minutes in, when you finally let go, you reach almost like this flow state where
Hmm.
everything does turn off. And for a lot of people, lifting heavy does that as well, because you'll see people that come out and everyone's like, "Oh my God, you did great," and you're sitting there like, "Ah, I don't remember a single thing, besides a bunch of noise on the outside. It's all TV static, right?"
Hmm.
Because it's just I think really with anything with an internal dialogue, whether it's just being a little bit more mindful in like a yoga practice and shutting out those outside distractions, and really like getting used to feeling comfortable just sitting in your own skin,
Hmm.
really transports you into a different state of mind, like a flow state. Same way that, going for a max clean and press, you're not focused on, how what are my holds when I'm breathing, or how's my breathing rhythm, or how am I, dropping into my body. You're still having that internal dialogue, where
Hmm.
your mind shuts off, where you're like, I need to hug this log to my chest. I need to bend it across my chest. All bodily cues that really help you drop into your body without, having that, I don't want to say vulnerable, but more vulnerable and laid back experience that
Yes.
something like yoga could bring. It's a little bit more intense,
Right.
and driven by anxiety rather than, just finding calm and really settling into yourself.
Why was particularly yin yoga? Is there any like how did you come to the moment that you're like, oh, I need this?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was issues in my life, right? It's real easy to drop into negative thinking or having all of these issues, and like I have a sports psychologist that I work with and a
Mm.
therapist as well, able to move and understand your body in a way where you're not jamming square shapes into circle holes, for example, to take you back to some early
Yeah.
childhood trauma.
Yeah. I get it. I get it.
It's a little bit more laid back, a little bit more vulnerable.
Hmm.
And once you're able to understand your body through something like yoga, and you make those neural connections to people to fire a little bit better, right? You're not only going to get better sleep, but you're going to be able to drop into your body whenever you're actually under like heavier loads, if that makes sense.
I understand there is a practice of yoga called Ashtanga. Ashtanga
Mhm.
means eight limbs or eightfold paths, where there is not only the exercising and meditation, but it's a lifestyle. It's the attitudes, the ethics, the moral observances, and all kind of ways how a person can incorporate a different framework in their life and live according. to it. What I want to say is that the Ashtanga can be a very intense practice because it requires certain postures that need to be repeated over and over again, and it creates a lot of fire within the body. So is Kundalini yoga, so is Hatha yoga that a lot of people are doing. It becomes a very intense experience, and interestingly, after 7 to 8 years of practice, I came to realize that with yoga, one is not necessarily has to do the postures, but it is possible to stay in one position and exercise on the inside with your muscles without moving a thing, which is quite fascinating to me.
Have you seen
So,
that like flow over into any like personal endeavors or anything? Has there been like any specific instances where that's like you've taken your practice and been able to for
so,
example, situations or things that you're looking through?
So actually dancing, when I go dancing, that's when I
Mm.
exercise my muscles on the inside because I start moving according to the flow of the music. I let the music take the body wherever it wants to take it, and then I start stretching. I start to press different muscles within myself. For instance, there is a great master yoga teacher, Yogananda. One can find documentary on Netflix about him. Also, he wrote a book, Autobiography of Yogi, that is quite popular in the West. And he provides energiz energizing exercises where one just stands and contracts different types of muscles and take different postures, but it's not like
Mm.
yoga. It's just rather a standing inner world exercise. So is Qigong, for instance, the Chinese old practice where you stand very still and then you move your body with your breath and expand or contract and move the energy from the bottom to the top or from to the top of the bottom, and then it helps tremendously to relieve anxiety, worry, and just put things into the perspective because from what I see, the body is an energetical vibrational field, and when one is expanding the consciousness or this energetic field with some practices, it is very easy to understand that this body is capable of much more than we typically think it is capable of, and also provide an understanding that the exploration of inner world can be limitless. Whereas if we are identified with our thinking, with our mind, it becomes very limited and conceptual.
Okay. Yeah, so it's more of a way to maneuver around things, I guess would be
What do you mean?
a way to say it. Like really understanding your not necessarily from like a psychological aspect of things, but really being able to understand a lot of different contexts and providing yourself with like a lot of different perspectives about certain situations so that you can then, connect with yourself and then make the best decision forward from
Yes,
there.
most importantly, I feel like you're saying that you're going to yin yoga and in order to calm yourself down or to stretch out, to gain some kind of space, because even from my view, the heavy lifting, what it can do is can contract the muscles in a way that it's very hard to relax later. And then, uh, correct me if I'm wrong, but if mm, those practices allow one to just gain some space around the inner feeling, sensations, and thinking, and discover a possibility of choosing one's reaction at any given moment.
Any specific like you know, actionable takeaways that you've had from yoga that you use as whether it's a mantra or a habit or really anything that you've built into your everyday life, specifically that's helped more than other
I see.
aspects that
There are
yoga has
definitely,
provided you?
yeah, there are definitely some mantras that I like to sing that helps me to reconnect with myself, with the body, with the awareness of what is happening within me right now. Because oftentimes, again, as I see, people are so in the rush that they lose themselves in that rush. But
Hmm.
a very good practice that I practice all the time, if I come out of the car or yeah, sit down, I take a few breaths, just a conscious breath. before any exercise, I do the same, and I do feel like it can be extremely helpful for anybody, heavy lifters as well, is to take a few breaths before the practice or before lifting, and then that would allow one to become aware more of the body and what muscles are tense and being able to relax them and provide an opportunity to be more focused when they're lifting. So the practice is very, yeah, the
Yeah.
practice is
Mhm.
very easy. It requires almost no time, like 15 seconds of just a simple breath, of conscious breath in and a breath out. And I practice it on the daily basis wherever I go, actually. And it helps me to just bring myself down to the moment because have you ever had the moments of being a heavy lifter where you could not lift anything because you were so worried about what happens in your life?
There's been plenty of action, specifically the split my ex, where I've just walked out of the gym. So I
Mm.
get that.
What other techniques or tools or instruments you use in order to find relaxation or to wind down after your uh, practices, after your exercising or championships?
Yeah. So after every session, I do about 10 to 15 minutes of elevated breathing,
Mm.
which is just some breath work. Four in,
That's
four hold,
what I'm
six out.
talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Just to calm the body, expand the rib cage a little bit, and have your CNS calm down. And I like to incorporate that with a lot too, because I take more of a holistic approach to training, because you're really tell the difference between cortisol levels from stressful life versus relationships with your loved ones to friends to platonic to relationship you had basically, all the way down to professional life X, Y, and Z. So
Hmm.
a lot of that, breath work really allows your body to settle into itself, not in fight or flight. You don't have that anxiety of it, and you can feel a lot of different, stiffness or aches and pains, different things like that, where you can really settle and find what you need to work towards,
Hmm.
and then have that reflection time after a session. Like for example, I have a bum shoulder at the moment. I tore it a few years ago. Re whatever happens last week at the record breakers event, and I take that time afterwards to kind of calm down and see, like, acknowledge those aches and pains and acknowledge those things are happening, but get to understand a little bit more of where they sit in my body. How are they affecting my mindfulness while I'm lifting? Am I visualizing right? Like, because it can be an extremely slippery slope whenever you're building up for a lift and you take that minute before a lift to compose your breath, do that breath work, and then actually visualize going into the lift. Am I 100% confident there, right? Because if
Hmm.
you visualize it, and I've had this happen a lot of times where you know, I visualized it once or twice, the weight's moving great, my body's firing, and then that third time I'm like, there's those negative thoughts that are creeping up, like, hey, what if your knee doesn't hold up, or what if your
Hmm.
shoulder doesn't hold up? And then you just spiral into negative visualization.
Yeah.
So that really helps kind of consolidate a lot of the happier thoughts or the more positive recollections of an event, right?
Hmm.
um, but you're able to do that pre and post lift,
I
right?
see.
Whenever you have that reflection time. A lot of people, specifically in strength sports, don't realize the benefits that can come from any kind of, for like example, yoga practice where you're understanding your body a little bit more,
Hmm.
whether that be in different flows or different practices, or for example, yin, where you're doing more mobility work. All of that's extremely important, right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, physically you can be as strong as you want to be, but mentally, right, you're only as strong as you are mentally.
Hmm.
If you go into a PR lift, like a personal record,
Mm-hmm.
and you have just like your typical everyday thinking, like this is average, I don't know if I can hit it or not, that kind of thing. You're
Yeah.
likely not budging that off the floor, but you take that same exact scenario, you run through some breath work, and you remember those times that you've cooled down
Mm-hmm.
after you worked out and you felt your body fall into place. You can really allocate your inner energy, and all of that to kind of push towards the places that they need in specific lifts so that you can then actually visualize that bigger lift, because a
Yeah.
PR is something that you've
Mm-hmm.
never touched before. So it's uncommon ground. You don't know what's going to happen. And if you don't have that right mindset, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if you're not dropping into your body and understanding, and I don't want to say feeling, but it feels like you're feeling those neurons firing, and going to the right place, right? Like breathing into your heart or breathing into your shoulder,
Mm-hmm.
or just using those energies that you already have inside of you to really place them in the places that you need. You're probably not going to get it.
Mm.
I went on a full
It's
infodome
okay.
rant there,
I
but
thought I can relate. 2.5 years ago, I received a, teacher training. I took a teacher training of Yoga Nidra. Yoga Nidra is a self-healing tool and a conscious creation instrument. So the same concept is that the students lie down and we go through different parts of the body and we relax different parts of the body, and that helps, in my understanding and my experience, to become aware of what's going on the inside and realize that some like what one is capable of, and come to realize that anything that comes and to the inside of the body is also going to go. But that's not the point. The point is that there is a part of conscious manifestation or conscious creation, and the interesting part of it is that we are not visualizing a future where something happens, but rather visualizing the longest, our deepest desire as if it is already the direct experience, as if it is already the case. And I do feel like I hear a lot of athletes and sports people, they use visualization uh, in order to accomplish their goals, which leads me to another question: is that what is the best way for you to accomplish, like how do you set the goals for yourself and how do you accomplish them?
yeah, I mean, a lot of it is has taken a back seat the past 3 or 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
But typically, you're looking at like, what are your ultimate goals, right? And those are then derived from, what are your priorities?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I have a vision board, a basically well-being toolkit, to an extent that I wake up to. It's literally right over there by my bed, and it's just a list of, these are the things that I need to work on. These are the things that, people have told me that I don't believe about myself, that I know in my true being, like that's not who I am. And then from there, like, here are the things that I need to work on.
Mm-hmm.
These are the things that I've accepted. And from there, you have grounding activities, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of those are just ways to subconsciously reaffirm yourself, have those positive affirmations. And 90% of lifting is really just, having that positivity to you and that confidence to you. I'm not saying, like go out on the internet and be like, "Oh, I'm stronger than everyone. Like I can lift everything." That's egotistical and
Right.
not great at all, right?
So
Um,
same thing with teaching yoga. If you come
yeah,
out and say, "Hey guys, this is the competition," and you have to push yourself very hard, there is no success in it.
yeah, yeah. You're much stronger when you're a little bit more vulnerable about yourself with yourself, and it's very hard to do that in the heat of the moment. So you got to do a lot of those like little things, for example, like vision boards or affirmation or,
Hmm.
journaling or little tactics like that, that help you subconsciously to change your conscious thoughts and to change your conscious actions and abilities, right? So
Really quickly, I'm gonna say is that
yeah,
meditation and yoga, in my experience and observation, helps to writing affirmation is amazing. Writing your goals and having a journal is amazing because when the mind is working very hard, it's very helpful to organize it and to put all your things that you need to be doing or want to be doing into just sheet of paper, that it's one pointed focus. The cool part about meditation in my experience is that it does the same thing because it calms the mind down, and one is able to distinguish or within themselves what is really true for them, what do they really need, what do they really want, and therefore they can take a sheet of paper and write it down with no mess on the inside, or the things become much more clear, much more present, much more aware, and there is no need to stress out that much any longer.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you come to those compromises between your emotional and your logical brain, right? You have to express those in some ways, whether it's for yourself or your unconscious, right? Just so you have something to, I want to say, latch onto when you're sober, for lack of a better word, from
Yeah.
emotional gaze or guys or um, specifically logically or one way or the other, right? You want to be in that middle ground where you're not all extreme to left or right. And I think a lot of different yoga practices really delve into that. But I start my day with that board, and then I end it with some kind of visualization. Or I've been big into hypnotherapy as
Mm.
well, from the visualization aspects, where you're able to kind of, I don't want to say be put under, but be put under and play with your mind unconscious a little bit to
Yes.
change those inner workings and those inner feelings. And I don't know about you, but for me, it was extremely uncomfortable when I started. It was
Mm.
very hard to, just focus on my breath and not what I have
Yes.
to do, or
Yes.
focus on my breath and let those, visualize those thoughts just screaming or going past my head, and acknowledging them, but just letting them drop off and really sinking into your body. I don't know if you've had any experiences in that part whenever you first started, or if you
I mean,
struggle
of
with that
course,
still.
I remember my very first meditation. It was, you could not sit longer than 3 minutes because, well, what happens is that it's not that there is more thinking happening, but it's rather one person becomes aware of how much thinking is there already. And it can be very uncomfortable, very uncomfortable to see. So if some people would reach out to you and they say, "Hey, I'm just a newbie. I'm just starting heavy lifting," what would you recommend for them not to burn out?
A lot of people, and the reason, like 80%, I don't know the exact statistics, but I think it's like in between 80 and 90% of people drop within the first 2 weeks, is that they just jump in, right? If someone comes to me, I am, what are you eating? Like, I have an application that tells me what they're eating if they're on the nutrition side that doesn't count
You're
calories.
talking
So it's
about
not,
your company, which is what's the name of it?
yeah, strengthbybarbell.com.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
a
We
human
do
performance
yeah,
company.
performance. Yeah, human performance is what I like to say, because we do a lot of like mindset work. I have my master's in psychology, so I'm
Mm,
qualified to be a therapist. I just haven't
amazing.
done any of the actual like
Sitting
certifications and
101.
tests that you need.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, basically. But like we do a lot of mentality stuff. So from yoga, for example, we do yoga practices, mindfulness, journaling, that kind of thing,
Amazing.
packed in with nutrition and performance.
Yeah.
But typically it's very like low maintenance, right? There's a study done, and if you haven't trained before, you can go in 1 day a week and still see remarkable results as long as you're 1 day a week, right? You're
Hmm.
going in training your whole body. And that's what we're looking at, right? So if you come to me, you're not going to get automatically a 6 day plan or a 5 day
Yeah.
plan or a all day plan, right? I want to learn a little bit more about how you interact with yourself and what your life looks like outside of the gym. That way we can understand this composite like cortisol value that you're building up and find where those pain points are. And cortisol is basically the stress hormone.
Yeah.
So whenever I say that, it's basically the reaction to stress. So we're finding where those stress points are, mitigating them, and while we mitigate them, we're filling it up and ramping it up with different kinds of programming. So you're adding in that physical stimulus, along with dieting, and along with a lot of those different things as well.
Hmm.
So it's really just breaking them down, understanding them, not breaking them down in the normal aspect, but
Yes,
breaking it down, how they live, what they do, and then understanding little habits that we can build in to build an
and
overall like
creating a
healthy lifestyle.
unique approach toward every single individual.
Hmm.
Yeah, and
Exactly. And a
how
lot
many?
of people just use the same shit over and over.
Yeah,
So it can
how
be
many people
detrimental.
you have already, and what does it take to join? I mean, I would assume they have to pay money.
Yeah,
Or
for the most part, yeah. I've got multiple
necessarily.
plans.
Hmm.
Yeah, my website, my base plan's $25 a month, so it includes like
Oh, wow, okay,
nutrition,
very
programming,
affordable.
everything. Yeah, it's not customized.
Hmm.
But I've got a couple hundred people on there, and then
Yeah.
I have more custom coaching, and that just kind of fluctuates depending on like season. Are there any shows coming up? What is the big thing here and now?
Hmm.
Um, just a lot of different variables there, but those range a little bit more expensive because they are one-on-one work, and you have my phone number and you have all this contact information and
Hmm.
just little things like that.
What is
I
the
mean,
advice not to burn down?
yeah, I mean, just start slow, understand yourself first. Don't jump into a 5, 6 day a week plan. Don't start stupid strict on your diet and nutrition. What that looks like is little things like if you're drinking soda,
Hmm.
remove soda, little things like that. If you are struggling in your personal life, go and implement, 1 day a week, go do some yoga, start a practice, sit with yourself, right? Because that can be extremely
Yeah.
uncomfortable too.
I
Just little things.
totally, yes, I agree with you because it's the same with yoga practice or any mindfulness. There is no need to completely change the lifestyle immediately. It's just important to incorporate something small, something one
Mhm,
that even to see whether it's good for my experience, for my body, for my mind. And then if it's not, try something else. But if it's good, then work on it, and then you can add something else. So it's all about, for me, about caring about oneself and being
mhm.
listening, a listener of oneself's thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, it's easy to neglect the body, and
Yeah,
your brain's telling you one thing and you want to do one thing, but your body's screaming at you to, hey, you should drink some more water or stretch sometime,
yes, yes.
you know?
So meditation helps to understand what is the mind, when is the mind talking, and what
Mhm.
is really me, authentic me needs.
Yeah,
Okay,
cool,
I feel
cool.
like it's great. I don't
Look
know
at
how. Yeah,
that. 5 seconds left.